Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Abby if you're new here, and today I'm going to be discussing what it's like living in Alberta and also talking about the differences between Calgary and Edmonton. Alberta is a really good choice for new immigrants because there are tons of opportunities here, and I'm just going to give you some factors that make Alberta a great place so that you can better decide where you would like to settle if you're planning to move to Alberta. So Alberta generally is a northern province. So when I say northern, I generally mean it's one of the colder areas of Canada. So we do have temperatures here that, get to -40, -30, but we also have really hot summers. So Alberta is known for such extreme conditions. In Alberta, we're primarily oil focused. So Alberta has one of the richest oil deposits in Canada. So we're really big on the oil industry. Another great thing about living in Alberta is the fact that we pay one of the lowest or the lowest provincial tax in Canada. So while so many other provinces, for example, in Ontario, you pay additional taxes. So you pay HST in Ontario, and then in British Columbia, you also pay PST. But here in Alberta, we only pay GST, which is 5%. So we do not have additional provincial taxes. So everything you buy, from food to accommodation to your school fees, is generally lower here because we have lower taxes here. Alberta is also known for having one of the better employment sectors. Because we're really focused on oil, we tend to have more jobs in that industry. And then Alberta also has a very diversified economy as well. We're also heavily focused on agriculture and tourism. Living in Alberta, even if it's very cold, you do have, on general, more sunlight days than every other province. So Calgary is known to have upwards of 330 days of sunlight. So it's very sunny here, even when it's extremely cold. So that's one of the perks of living in Alberta. Another perk of living here is the fact that it is quite affordable compared to so many other provinces. British Columbia is quite expensive, and Ontario, if you're living, within the core areas, is also very expensive. But this is not the case with Alberta. It's relatively cheap because of our lower provincial taxes. People tend to save more when they move to Alberta versus living in Ontario or in British Columbia. Another really good perk of living in Alberta is the healthcare. And this is, in fact, is for the whole Canada, but in Alberta, your healthcare kicks in from day one. I know some of the provinces, you have to wait about 3 months before your healthcare kicks in. But when you come to Alberta, from day one, you're covered. So I'm just going to go quickly into Calgary versus Edmonton. Which should you choose? And if you're coming, where should you land? So a lot of people love Calgary. I love Calgary even if I live in Edmonton, and I'll tell you why I love Calgary. So Calgary winters are a little bit milder, and the reason they are milder is because they get something we call the Chinooks. So the Chinooks is just the warm air from the North Pacific Ocean that rises up. There's some chemistry involved that I don't know, but if you Google Chinook, you would see that there's some warm air from the North Pacific that when it blows towards Calgary, you can be in the middle of winter and it feels like summer. So people can have jackets on in the morning, and when the warm air comes, they will just go home and change into their shorts because it becomes very hot. So that's one of the good things about Calgary. Calgary has the Chinooks, which means that winters sometimes are not as dreadful as the ones in Edmonton. Whereas in Edmonton, we don't get those Chinooks, so our winter is pretty steady. If it's bad, it is bad. Another reason Calgary is really good too is because it's very close to the Rocky Mountains. So a lot of people travel to Canada for the Rocky Mountains. We have this majestic sprawl of mountains everywhere in Alberta. Banff is about 45 minutes from Calgary, and Jasper is about 3 hours from Calgary. So it's not very far. The Rocky Mountains are very close to Calgary. It is kind of a notable distance from Edmonton. So Banff from Edmonton is about 4 or 5 hours drive, and then Jasper from Edmonton is about the same. So it's quite a distance from Edmonton. The next difference between Calgary versus Edmonton is the industries here. So generally, before crude oil fell, we had a booming oil sector, we had a booming oil industry, and because that boom fed so many other industries, Alberta was really good for employment. So we used to have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. When the prices of oil fell, we lost a lot of jobs because a lot of jobs were linked to the oil sector, and Calgary took a really big hit because a lot of headquarters, oil corporations headquarters, are domiciled in Calgary. So because of that, unemployment is slightly more in Calgary than in Edmonton. So Edmonton, even if Edmonton is very diversified, and just so you know, Edmonton is capital of Alberta. So even if it's more diversified, a lot of jobs here consist of the public sector because it's the capital. So we do have big energy corporations here and there, but the main industry here for work is public sector and a lot of other service industries. So that's a difference. There's a lot more competition to get work in Calgary than there is here in Edmonton. I think that's something people should know. So if you're looking to move here, then you start to look for jobs in your field in both Calgary and Edmonton. And speaking about these jobs, so it's important to note that apart from the core government jobs and service firms here and there, Edmonton is a little bit more blue collar than Calgary. And what that really means is that people in Calgary work in offices. As I said, a lot of headquarters there, corporations there. But meanwhile, here in Edmonton, a lot more people are blue collar, so they work in the oil fields. So that's one of the differences between these sorts of professions you find in Calgary versus in Edmonton. So talking about life in general, Calgary versus Edmonton, Alberta generally is one of the more conservative provinces in the country. So we tend more towards conservatism here in Alberta, which means that we're more of everybody is their own boss. So a lot of people also do their approach to work too, their own businesses. It's very strong here in Alberta because they are very self-sufficient. So let's talk about religion. So if you're coming here and you're affiliated to any religion, Alberta really supports that. So there's a ton of religious communities here. I feel like everyone is represented. So there's a Christian community, there's a Muslim community, there's the agnostics, the atheists, there's the Hindus, there's different pockets of religious communities here. So I'm pretty sure that you coming here, you will definitely find the one that you most identify with. Also, Alberta is even if we're very conservative, is very opening because Canada generally is open to anybody who is different. So it's very diverse, as I mentioned before. Another thing too, when you're thinking about Calgary versus Edmonton, is transportation. So transportation in Alberta, honestly, is not the best. It's not the best at all. And I would actually say in the whole of Canada, transportation is not the best. In Calgary, the main public method of transportation is the C train or buses, and I know a bus pass there would cost you about $107 per month. But here in Edmonton, the main transportation too is the LRT and the buses. So the LRT is our train system here. It's overland or underground sometimes, and a bus pass per month will set you to about $95 per month. But to be honest, a lot of people, if you don't live in the core of downtown, a lot of people would really use the train or the bus systems or get a car. So that's something you need to keep in mind, that most times here, especially because of the harsh weather, the winter, you might need to buy a car right off the bat for you to be able to move around because the transportation system is not the best. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the cost of living. So the cost of living, based on my research, is a little lower in Edmonton than it is in Calgary. So for things like basic home staples like groceries, fine, they are really on the same scale because we pay the same low taxes for everything. But there's just a noticeable 2 cents, 4 cents, 5 cents addition in prices in Calgary. For example, gas is way more expensive in Calgary. Sometimes it could be as much as like 10 cents per liter or 20 cents per liter or 50. Meanwhile, in Edmonton, gas is really cheap. Food and groceries are just marginally cheaper in Edmonton as well. Accommodation and rent are definitely cheaper in Edmonton as well. So these are little things I think you need to go and find out and research, because it's okay if you choose to assume some expenses in favor of, you know, some other benefits. So if you're really looking at having a thriving social life, or you feel like your job opportunity is only going to be in Calgary, then there's no point coming to Edmonton because you save 10 cents on a bottle of milk. So I would say that's something you need to think about. But generally, the cost of living is just slightly less in Edmonton, very marginal. But obviously you need to consider if that's a margin of difference you're willing to take. So another big difference between Edmonton and Calgary is social life. So in Alberta, generally we have a really good arts and social scene, but the arts and social scene here in Alberta is way more in Edmonton than in Calgary. So we have in Edmonton here, we have a whole sprawling entertainment districts. We have the Royal Alberta Museum, we have the Art Gallery of Alberta, we have the Fort Edmonton Park, we have the Citadel Theatre, we have the Windspear theatre where you can go and watch symphonies and stuff. So there's a really big arts and culture scene here. We tend to have a ton of festivals, and we have different districts that are known for just arts and culture. So it's a really big thriving scene here in Edmonton. Not to say there's a lack of these in Calgary, there's some, it's just that there's a really bigger thriving arts and culture scene here in Edmonton than in Calgary. In those veins too, Edmonton is one of the cities, is actually, I think, the only city that's called the Festival City in Canada. The reason being that when it's summer, there's something happening every day. There's always one festival. We have the Heritage Festival, the Fringe Festival, the Folks Festival. We have K-Days. We have Afro-Caribbean festivals. So we always have one thing going on or the other. Calgary, on the other hand, has some. They have the Stampede and maybe some other festivals here and there. But Edmonton wins it when it comes to festival. So a lot of people enjoy being in Edmonton summertime because there's always going to be something to do. And the next point I would make regarding things to do and outdoorsy things is that Edmonton has one of the biggest stadiums in, I'm not too sure about the stats, but I would say in Canada, and it's called the Rogers Place. And the reason it's notable is because whenever there's a concert, Edmonton is always one of the 4 or 5 cities in Canada that they come to, because we have the stadium or the space to accommodate a ton of people. So because of that, we always have games here, we always have concerts, we always have book launches and stuff. So that's something that's because of our infrastructure, we have opportunity to host. Another thing is our sporting industry as well, Edmonton Oilers. So if you ever heard about sports in Canada, you would know that hockey is our main sport. And because of that, the Oilers are Edmonton's team, and I don't know, everybody knows the Oilers. I don't know if they win often. I know I should know this, but I don't know if they win often, but they are very notable, the Edmonton Oilers. Calgary has the Calgary Flames, but I don't know if they win at all. But the Oilers, everybody knows the Oilers because they've represented Canada on a number of occasions. So we have a very competitive sporting industry here when it comes to hockey. Another big difference between Edmonton and Calgary is the parks and valleys we have here. We have the River Valley in Edmonton downtown that is dedicated to leisure and recreational activities. So parks, bike lanes, dog parks, walkways has been measured to be about 18 times that of Stanley Park and 25 times Central Park in New York. In Calgary, I know that they have some parks, but they do not have nowhere near as much space dedicated to family and leisure as Edmonton has. Another great thing about Edmonton too is the fact that we have one of the biggest malls too in North America, the West Edmonton Mall. So even in this mall, we have our amusement park, we have a Fantasyland hotel, we have so many things that people can come here and do. When it comes to family and just enjoying the space and the community you live in, Edmonton is really good, but so is Calgary. It's just that Edmonton, I'll give Edmonton maybe an 8/10, and I will give Calgary maybe a 6. So it really depends though. If you're looking more to, honestly, when you're moving here, I think one of the things you should maybe think about is the purpose for which you're going to move here. If you're moving here for work, then Edmonton might be better for you. But if you're moving here for family, it depends at what stage your family is at. So if you have young kids, Edmonton might be better for you. If you have older kids, or if you're single, Calgary might be better for you, because the Calgary community is actually a little bit younger, I would say. And also because Calgary is more western, it's cow town, you know, the party scene there is quite alive. So that might be a reason to move to Calgary. Not to say Edmonton doesn't have this. Edmonton has those in loads as well. But I guess it's just your preference. So make sure you do your research and decide where you'd like to move to. But I'm in Edmonton and it's been great. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And also, if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. It's down below somewhere. And I'll see you guys later. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Bye.